Randstad RiseSmart is the only coaching provider that lets you offer coaching to all your employees. Their disruptive, innovative approach does away with cumbersome and expensive licenses, allowing you to be more equitable and inclusive and extend the reach of coaching for all like never before.
Welcome to ATD's Talent Development Leader podcast, featuring monthly conversations with the greatest influencers in the talent development field. We cover the latest trends, hot topics, and future-focused ideas that current and aspiring TD leaders need to know. Learn more by visiting www.td.org and searching for Talent Development Leader podcast. Today, I'm joined by Lindsay Witcher, the global leader of Randstad RiseSmart, a career transition and coaching organization who has over 15 years of experience in business and talent strategy leadership. Having held many roles over her 14 years there, starting on the ground floor when RiseSmart was a Silicon Valley startup as a coach, Lindsay led delivery teams, drove global practice strategy, and oversaw sales and customer success. In each role, she partnered with organizations to develop career transition and talent management strategies that empower employees to thrive in their careers. Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Anne. It's such a pleasure. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Today, we're talking about career development and the role of talent development leaders in creating the optimum environment for employees to thrive. For years, leading research has informed us, and I've been reading and learning about this for my many years in the talent development profession, that organizations with robust career development programs have a competitive advantage, and that employees want and expect career development from their organizations. We know that prioritizing people's growth gives organizations that leading edge. What is the latest research in this space saying about expectations from employees and opportunities provided by employers when it comes to career development?
That's a great question, Anne. It's no surprise that pretty much every organization, when they do their annual or biannual or multiple times a year employee engagement survey, the top thing that consistently comes up is career development. Employees want to feel like they have the opportunity within their organization and within their role to grow, to learn new things, to stay current, to stay relevant. It has been, and I think it'll continue to be a top thing on employees' minds going forward. And I think a lot of the data that you see coming out of places like Gartner and others really supports that. I don't see that changing. In fact, I expect that it'll continue to increase with all of the changes that we've seen in the workforce driven by AI and everything else that's happening in the world and will continue to happen in the coming years.
I think, too, it's, again, from what I've read recently, it's not a generational thing, right? Every generation
No.
in the workplace cares about career development and about advancing their skills.
Every generation does. My observation of what changes from generation to generation is what career development means, right? So if you think about some of the generations that were most prevalent in the workforce 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was really a somewhat singular definition of career development, which was moving up that ladder, right? Getting from one job to the next job to the next job until you reach sort of the peak of your career. I think that what career development and frankly, what career success looks like from the generations that are more prevalent in the workforce today, and especially from the generations that are just entering into the workforce, what career development means and what career success means looks very, very different. Of course, there is still a segment of that population that for them, they want to get to, the highest levels of an organization. Of course, there's always going to be people for whom that's important. But I think more and more we're seeing the definition of career development, career success really evolve to be centered around meaning, purpose, work life, synergy, integration, balance, whatever word you want to use, right? There's lots of opinions on that. But also, I think growth as it relates not just to moving up a quote unquote ladder, but feeling like you constantly have the opportunity within your role and within your organization to learn, to increase your skills, to stay current with the changing landscape of technology, so on and so forth. The idea of career development just being an upward mobility sort of thought process, if you will, I think has really shifted and people understand now, especially as organizations are generally speaking getting flatter, that career development can mean something very different and that each person's career development goals and journey should and does look very unique and different based on who they are, where they're at, what they're trying to do, so on and so forth.
So it's definitely still important, probably now more so than ever. And that's really helpful context when you talk about the workplace today, and especially that element of personal, meaningful, curated career development. And there are many possibilities that exist when it comes to development solutions, content, and tools. And there's often a sense of overwhelm, I think, for employers and learning leaders when it comes to the volume of what they could do, what they could implement, and also for employees, all of the resources or tools within their organization to navigate for their own development. And I think managers are in the middle of it all and feeling super burned out. What can organizations do to effectively cut through all this noise? How can they empower their middle managers and really provide the most high impact solutions for their people?
Oh, it's such a good question. The answer is probably as complex as the problem at this stage, frankly. From my perspective, first and foremost, I think one of the most important thing leaders can do within organizations is start by recognizing that each individual's career development journey is unique and should be highly personalized. Sometimes this can be attacked from an overly generalized point of view, if that makes sense, meaning, well, everyone must want this skill or everyone must want this career development opportunity. And the reality is, each one of us, there's often a sort of an aspiration we have for ourselves that may or may not be aligned with the aspiration our organization might have, either for us personally or for our role type or for our level or whatever, that may be. So I think first and foremost, a recognition that in order for career development, investments in career development to really take hold, deliver the ROI that you expect, so on and so forth, you need to really think about it from an end user perspective. And this is where it gets complicated. What's going to be meaningful and impactful and deliver on ROI, if you look at each individual just from that point, it's going to be different. This is where I think AI has a tremendous opportunity to make everything we do in this area not only easier to implement and deliver, but deliver much higher ROI in the long term. I don't think we're quite there yet where we're seeing that vision come to life, where AI just sort of, I always use the word automagically. It's not in the dictionary, but it's one of my personal terms. But, whenever AI gets to the point where it can automagically recognize what might be important to each individual from a career development perspective and serve up access to that which would be meaningful to each person, that's sort of the glorious North Star we can all work towards. We're not there yet, but I think that that's where AI brings an incredible opportunity because it'll allow organizations to invest in targeted career development opportunities for people, whether that be technology, whether that be training opportunities, whether that be mentorship or coaching or, you name it, all of the various ways that we can invest in our employees' career development. It'll allow employers to be really targeted in their investments, but more importantly, it will allow the end users, both managers who you mentioned and actual employees, to be able to find and consume those resources and tools, whatever they are, in a much more personalized, successful fashion from my perspective. And I think that's really where things start. I'm a big believer in designing career development offerings, experiences, programs, tools, resources, so on and so forth, from the perspective of what the experience for that end user is going to be like. And I think organizations, by starting there and really looking at what are all the resources you have available today. Every company I talk to, they can sit there and give me a laundry list of development programs, skilling programs, tools, resources, technologies that they have. But all of them are sort of struggling with the same thing, which is user adoption. They have these things, but they're struggling to get employees to use them. Thinking through, again, knowing that the AI solution is coming, it's not quite here yet from my perspective, but it'll be here eventually. Start with, what are all of the things we're offering our employees today? Is it easy for them to find them? Do they know what they are? If they do know what they are and where to find them, do they understand how to start consuming them? I think that seems like obvious, and table stakes, but I can't tell you how many people. I'll use my own husband as an example. The other day, he was talking about a particular area that he wants to grow in. And I said, well, have you checked out your company's learning and development opportunities and options? And he's like, well, sort of. And so we started talking about it. And like so many customers I work with, there's a lot of great stuff, but it's somewhat hard to figure out and find. And if your employees are struggling, your managers are probably struggling. I think I got a little off track there on the original question that you asked me, but I think the moral of what I'm trying to say is, or the summary of what I'm trying to say is, you don't want to boil the ocean. Start with the basics. Look at what you have, what's getting utilized. Look at how your employees are exposed to it, how they can access it, and look at where you can streamline those things as much as possible as a starting point.
I imagine a lot of this investigation and exploration also involves asking people, right? That when you talk about the end user and their experience and really digging into what's useful for them, what you have that might not be as useful, and what's completely missing. I would assume as well, a lot of organizations just aren't having those conversations. Like you say, they're putting the things out there, create kind of a less is more approach than when you look at career development, as far as rather than just delivering a million tools, really getting clear and targeted.
Absolutely. I'd rather organizations offer, 3 to 5 extremely impactful things that get really high utilization than a million things that nobody knows where it is, how to use it. I would even encourage leaders in this space to think about designing the experience of employees, not unlike product managers design a product experience. Do a focus group. Sit down with either an individual or a group of people and say, tell me about your career development goals. Great. Let me watch you, right? Like share your screens. Please go find our career development resources and just see what they do. Just see where they go. Just see, does the employee go, oh, absolutely. I know it's right here. And I click here and then I have access to it. Or do they look at you with a blank stare on their face, not knowing where to start? I think sometimes we're so busy designing the 50,000 square foot view, if you will, that we don't really get down to the level of what the actual employee experience looks like. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. Obviously, solving all of this is much more complex than just making sure there's a good end user experience. But sometimes, you can start with some of the most simple things and get some really big gains.
Yeah. And Lindsay, you mentioned AI. I think about with that as well, all of the noise and kind of a more intentional, strategic, less is more approach when you look at, what will actually provide a high impact for my career development approach or solutions in 2025. Any other advice on kind of how to approach an AI informed strategy for career development?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, there's a lot of great research and thought leadership out there on the topic. I think if you just start looking at all of the AI solutions in the learning and development space, it can quickly become overwhelming. But I think that there are some really great resources that are putting together more curated points of view around what AI solutions are out there, where to get started, what can be helpful. And I think first and foremost, before you jump in and start spending a bunch of money on a bunch of different solutions, really targeting one or two problems within the organization as it relates to career development that you're trying to solve, and honing in on the offerings out there in the market that perhaps could move the needle on whatever that specific thing is for you, right? Where, as we talked about in the beginning, career development is at the top of every employee engagement survey, without a doubt, or maybe not at the top, but in the top 3 for sure, depending on the organization. How you can solve for it and what is important to employees from a career development perspective based on your industry, the company, what kind of business you're in, can look very different. I would start small. I would pick a couple of things and do some pilots and some tests, see how it has an impact for your employees. So, for example, top of mind in this space for so many organizations is skilling. Making sure that your workforce has the skills of tomorrow, making sure that you're making investments so that your employees are staying abreast of whatever the skills are that they need based on the industry that you're in. That's a great place to start. What sort of skilling opportunities are you currently offering to employees? What are they asking for? If you look at the future of the organization and the strategy, what are the key skills that your workforce is going to need, either everybody or a important segment of your workforce? Can you start there? Can you look at the AI/skilling vendors or skilling vendors that have AI capabilities? Let's put it that way. look at what's out there and test a couple things, pilot a couple things, see what that end user experience is like, see how and if that learning is retained and used in the day-to-day jobs of those people that take it, and then go from there. What I'm trying to say is it can be really tempting to go 110 miles an hour at something like this. I would say, given the current status of the space and given how it's still very early, start small, test, prove it out, ideate, and then go from there. And also, I would say lean on your existing vendors. Most companies have a lot of organizations that they're already working with across learning and development, HRIS systems, so on and so forth. Likely there's some capabilities there you may not even be aware of. So rather than going out to the market and looking at what else you can add to the suite of tools and resources you already have, look at what already exists within the organization you might be able to better leverage. That also will allow you to simplify and maybe make it a little less daunting, getting some of these capabilities built into the organization.
That's great advice. I know our audience of talent development leaders are still very, as folks in many organizations, very homed in on AI and yeah, how they can do it right, thoughtfully. And the practical examples, as you say, simplifying everything is really useful for them. Speaking of them, our listeners, this target audience, what is their role in all of this career development conversation? And what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm a big believer that career development needs to be owned by the individual, but empowered by the organization. And so we as individual employees, no matter what level you are, whatever part of the organization you sit in, you have to take control of your career. You can't sit back and wait for the company, your manager, the learning and development department, whatever it might be. You can't sit back and wait for them to make things happen for your career development. I think that we each as individuals need to take ownership of doing the work to understand what's important to us. What is our career vision? What are some of the steps that we need to take there? But it's really for the organization to make sure that I have access as an employee to the support tools and resources to act on those ambitions that I have for my own career development. So it's really a partnership from my perspective. I think that making sure that there are some, what I'll just call table stakes behaviors happening within your organization is a really great place to start. And that looks like career conversations between managers and employees. It starts there, making sure that your managers are having regular career conversations with employees, understanding what drives the employee, what skills do they want to gain, what is their vision for their career, and figuring out then how do you connect the dots between each individual's ambitions and what is available within the organization. And I think from a learning and development leader perspective, it's again going back to that end user experience and figuring out what have I made available to the employees within my organization, and is it easy for them to access it and identify the things that'll be meaningful to them at scale, right? For all employees in an equitable way across the organization. And so I think it's really empowering both sides of that journey, empowering employees to own their career, but making sure that, as they take that control and they take that ownership, that you're providing them with clear, easy to access opportunities to then act on whatever it is that they're trying to do for their career.
I love that balance between employees owning their careers and then employers doing their part as well. I think that's so important. As we wrap up here, Lindsay, I'd love to learn from your recent research, reading, and work. What has surprised you lately? What's something that's caused you to pause and think, huh, or aha? Share any of these findings or insights with us.
No, it's such a great question. And there's been so many. I mean, it's everywhere I turn, there's a new interesting development in this space. And for me, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is what a huge opportunity there is in combining sort of the tech and the touch as it relates to career development. And what I mean by that is I've been doing a lot of playing around with, the various Gen AI platforms and giving them prompts saying, act as a manager, act as a trusted advisor, act as a career counselor, so on and so forth, and give me advice on this thing, whatever that is, right? Just sort of playing around with it. And back to that personalization point that I made earlier, there's such a huge opportunity for AI to be this incredible layer between all of the offerings, the tools, the resources, the content, et cetera, really being this curation hub, if you will, with like extremely highly personalized recommendations for each individual. But I also think that you don't truly get everything out of that unless you have that human layer supporting that, if that makes sense. And that human layer can look like a really great manager, a really great mentor, a career coach. I guess my aha moment is more of a recognition of an opportunity to look at how we can sort of combine these things where each employee is surrounded by this quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes. This is a podcast, so you can't see my air quotes, but you can imagine them, where each individual employee is surrounded by this team that supports them, which is the organization, whether that's learning and development or the organization more broadly, their manager, their leader, a mentor, a coach, AI, right? And that the combination of those things together really just creates a much richer, more streamlined, higher value added experience for employees within organizations. And I think the opportunity and the aha moment for me is what we can unlock within our people if we can get those things right. I don't have all the answers. I don't have the playbook. I don't think anyone in this space does. But I think all of us, or many of us, based on the conversations that I've been having, can see that opportunity and can see that it's just past this horizon that we're at. It's something I think will be realized in organizations sooner than probably it feels like at the moment with how quickly everything is evolving. That's been my thing I've been noodling on more of late.
The possibilities are exciting. And I think that also brings us to think about, what are those human skills that we need to develop to augment, complement, support AI, right? So what are the things that in this partnership that you're describing would be really powerful too? That's really cool. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Please tell listeners how they might connect with you to ask any of their own questions or to continue the conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. Again, Lindsay Witcher. Really excited to connect with folks in the community and have other conversations. You can reach out to me directly there, and I will look very much forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this podcast by the Association for Talent Development. If you found this show insightful or useful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague.